It was a cold evening in New York when Michael Carter, a 42-year-old billionaire known for his iron heart and ruthless business deals, stood alone in the dimly lit parking lot of his towering glass office. His reputation was clear, sharp-minded, emotionally distant, a man who believed money could fix everything. But tonight, something unusual caught his attention. At the far end, in the flickering glow of a dying streetlight, a thin black boy, barely 15, with torn shoes and a hopeful glint in his eyes, was dancing, spinning and moving as if the cracked pavement was his stage. Michael had a decision to make: walk away as always, or step closer. The boy was trespassing, after all, but there was something haunting in his movements, a mix of pain and joy, hunger and hope. Why was this boy dancing here, in the cold, alone? Why did Michael, who never cared for strangers, feel compelled to stop? Could this boy be the answer to the one thing Michael's billions had failed to fix: his daughter's broken smile? The sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Carter estate, painting the marble floors with golden lines that morning. The mansion was silent except for the soft hum of machines in the east wing where Emily Carter, Michael's 12-year-old daughter, lay in her wheelchair. Her legs had not moved in 2 years, not since the accident. Doctors had tried. Therapists had tried. Michael had paid every price, flown her to Europe, Asia, everywhere, but nothing had brought back the sparkle in her eyes. The staff moved carefully, as if afraid to disturb the heavy air. Maids whispered in the hallway, the gardener worked silently outside, and the chef prepared breakfast no one really wanted. Michael entered the room, his suit perfectly pressed, but his face worn with sleeplessness. Emily looked at him, her voice quiet. "Daddy, do you think I'll ever dance again?" Michael paused. That word, dance, cut through him. Once, she had been a little ballerina, spinning in the living room with ribbons in her hair. Now, she barely smiled. He knelt beside her, forcing a smile. "Of course, princess. We'll find a way." But deep down, he had begun to lose hope. Money had failed him. Science had failed him. And that made him angry, not at her, but at himself, at the world, at fate. Later that night, Michael left his office after an exhausting meeting. The city was cold, the streets buzzing with distant sirens and flickering lights. That was when he saw the boy again. The boy's name was Jamal, though Michael didn't know that yet. Jamal danced like the world wasn't watching, because no one usually did. His movements were raw but powerful, a mixture of street style and something self-taught, as if dance was his only language. His breath turned to mist in the icy air, and his stomach growled, but his feet didn't stop. Michael stepped closer. His voice was sharp. "Hey! What are you doing here?" Jamal froze, startled like a deer caught in headlights. I'm just practicing, sir. I didn't mean no harm." "This is private property," Michael said coldly. Jamal lowered his head. "I know. There's light here. And a little bit of space. I can't dance at home. There's no home, really." Those words lingered. No home. Michael narrowed his eyes. Something about this boy reminded him of the fire he once had, the hunger to rise. But this wasn't charity. He had no reason to care. And yet, he didn't tell the guards. He didn't call the police. He just stood there, watching the boy's worn sneakers, the ripped jacket barely holding against the wind. The next morning, Michael couldn't shake the image. Emily had refused breakfast again, her usual silent stare at the garden. Her nurse whispered, "She hasn't laughed in weeks, sir. She doesn't want therapy. She just wants something to feel alive again." And then it hit him, the way Jamal moved, the energy he carried in his broken steps. Could that kind of raw passion wake something in her heart? Michael wasn't a man who believed in coincidences, but this felt like a thread tugging at him. That evening, he returned to the same spot. Jamal was there, again, dancing, this time slower, with headphones dangling from his ears. Michael stepped forward. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated. "Jamal, sir. Jamal Rivers." "You dance here every night?" "Yes, sir. I'm trying to get good. Maybe join a crew someday." Maybe earn a little money doing what I love. Michael crossed his arms. And how's that going? Jamal shrugged. I don't have much. Just this. He pointed to his old phone playing faint music. But I don't give up. If I stop dancing, I stop breathing. There was something about that answer, raw, honest, unpolished, that stirred something long buried in Michael. Days passed. Michael started watching from his car, not saying much. He asked his assistant to find out about the boy. The report came quickly: orphan, dropped out of school, living with a distant aunt who barely fed him, no criminal record, just a kid on the edge of being forgotten by the world. One Friday evening, Michael stepped out of his car and said something that surprised even himself. Jamal, would you like to earn some money? Legally. I might have something for you. Jamal looked at him, wary. Doing what, sir? Dancing, Michael said simply. That night, Emily sat in her room, staring at her reflection. Her legs were still, her heart heavy. When Michael entered with a mysterious smile, she raised an eyebrow. Daddy, what's with that look? I have someone I want you to meet tomorrow, he said. Someone who dances. Emily's eyes flickered for the first time in months. Dances? Why? Because maybe, Michael whispered, watching someone else move might make you want to move again. The next afternoon, Jamal stood nervously in the Carter mansion, his jacket patched, his shoes worn, his eyes wide at the chandeliers and marble floors. Emily watched him from her wheelchair, her arms crossed. Who's this? She asked. This, Michael said, is Jamal. He's going to show you something. Jamal swallowed hard. Hi. I don't know fancy dances. I just move how I feel. Emily tilted her head. Then show me. And he did. Slowly at first, then with more rhythm. His sneakers squeaked softly against the polished floor as he twisted, spun, and moved with a freedom Emily had forgotten existed. The room seemed to breathe again. For the first time in 2 years, she smiled. But not everyone was pleased. Later that evening, as Jamal left, one of the senior staff whispered to Michael, Sir, are you sure about this? Bringing someone like him here? The press, the board members, they may not like it. Michael's jaw tightened. I don't care what they like. If my daughter smiles again, I'll burn their contracts. Yet, as Jamal walked home, 2 men in black suits followed him silently from across the street. Someone else had noticed the strange connection forming, and they didn't want it to continue. The next morning, Jamal didn't show up. His phone was off. The street corner where he danced was empty, just a cigarette but smoldering in the frost. Emily asked, Where is he, Daddy? You said he'd come. Michael's gut twisted. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The city was still waking when Michael Carter's black limousine rolled down the familiar streets, his eyes scanning every corner where Jamal once danced. It had been 2 days since the boy disappeared, and Emily's questions kept cutting through his mind like icy wind. Where is he, Daddy? Why didn't he come back? Michael wasn't a man who cared easily, but now there was a strange hollowness in his chest. Jamal had lit a spark in Emily, a faint smile, a moment of hope, and now that spark was gone. The mansion felt colder again, the corridors emptier, as if the little warmth that had started to grow had been stolen overnight. The sunlight streamed through the glass towers of Manhattan, but for Michael, it was just glare. His assistant, Rachel, sat across from him in the car, scrolling through her tablet. No sign of him, sir, she said. The address we had on file, his aunt says he hasn't come home in 2 nights. Police won't consider him missing yet. They said boys like him disappear all the time in this city. Michael's jaw tightened. Boys like him? What does that even mean? Rachel hesitated. Poor. Unseen. Easy to forget. That answer stayed in the air like smoke. Back at the Carter estate, Emily was growing restless. Her nurse tried to cheer her up with books and music, but her voice turned sharp. You don't get it. He was real. He didn't treat me like glass. He danced because he wanted to, not because of me. And now he's gone. Her outburst startled even Michael when he entered the room. She rarely raised her voice since the accident. He knelt beside her. Emily, I promise I'll find him. She glared. You promise a lot of things, Daddy. Those words cut deeper than any corporate betrayal he had ever faced. That night, Michael drove himself, no chauffeur, no assistant. The cold air bit his skin as he walked the cracked pavements near the old subway line. It was there, in the shadow of a graffiti-covered wall, that he noticed something. A torn piece of fabric, Jamal's jacket, the one with the stitched sleeve. And next to it, a shoe print. Not Jamal's, it was larger, cleaner, almost military in its precision. Michael's instincts, the same ones that had made him a ruthless dealmaker, whispered that this wasn't random. Someone had removed the boy. But why? He called Rachel at midnight. I want everything on those men you said followed him the other night. Find them. And don't ask questions. Rachel hesitated. Sir, this isn't a corporate matter. This is the streets. People don't talk when money walks here, they hide. Then use more money, Michael said coldly. Or use fear. I want names by morning. The next day, a name appeared, Coleman Enterprises, a shadowy organization with polished offices by day and dirty hands by night. They had ties to real estate, security, and rumors of underground trafficking. Boys like Jamal were relocated or hired for purposes no one wrote on paper. Michael stared at the file, his fingers drumming the desk. He had crossed paths with Coleman before, in business, not in war. But this time, it was war. Rachel whispered, Sir, are you sure? They're dangerous. This isn't about money anymore. Michael looked out the window at the gray skyline. Everything is about money until someone you love suffers. Then it's about something else. Meanwhile, Jamal sat in a dark room somewhere across the city, his wrists tied, a bruise forming on his cheek. A man in a suit leaned against the wall. You think rich men bring you in for nothing? You were supposed to stay in your lane, boy. But you walked into their world. Now we own you. Jamal spat blood on the floor. I didn't steal nothing. I just danced. The man chuckled. Exactly. That's why you're valuable. They want to use you to make the Carter girl smile. That means you have leverage. And leverage makes money. Jamal's stomach churned. He had never been part of a scheme, he just wanted to dance. But now he was a pawn. Back at the mansion, Emily refused dinner. She sat by her window, the city lights reflecting in her teary eyes. Daddy doesn't understand, she whispered to her nurse. He thinks he can buy everything. But Jamal didn't need to be bought. He just needed someone to see him. Michael couldn't sleep. His mind replayed Emily's words, you promise a lot of things, Daddy. At 3 a.m., he got up, put on his coat, and walked down to the garage. His old sports car, a car he hadn't driven in years, waited like a beast in the dark. He whispered to himself, if I have to go back to the streets I left behind, so be it. The engine roared, cutting through the silent night. He met a contact in a smoke-filled diner at the edge of Brooklyn, Samir, an old acquaintance from his reckless youth. You've changed, Carter, Samir said, sipping bitter coffee. Last time I saw you, you were building towers. Now you're looking for lost boys. Michael placed an envelope thick with cash on the table. I need an address. Coleman's holding a kid. 15. Black. Name's Jamal Rivers. Samir whistled. You're walking into fire, my friend. Those people don't play by your boardroom rules. I'm not here to play, Michael said, his eyes cold. I'm here to bring him back. By dawn, he had the location, an old warehouse by the docks. Rachel begged him not to go. We can call the police, the media. They'll bury it before it sees daylight, Michael interrupted. This is on me. I brought him into this. I'll bring him out. The rain poured as Michael approached the warehouse. His footsteps echoed in the empty yard. A shadow moved behind a window. He pushed open the rusty door and froze. On the concrete floor lay Jamal's torn headphone, still faintly playing music. A camera in the corner turned its red eye toward him. And then a voice echoed from the dark. "You came alone, Mr. Carter. Good. We like men who keep their promises." The door slammed shut behind him. Back at the mansion, Emily woke with a start. Her nurse rushed in. "Are you all right?" Emily shook her head. "Something's wrong." "Daddy, he's not here, is he?" The nurse hesitated. "No, sweetheart. He left a note. He said he'll bring Jamal back." Emily clutched her blanket, her heart pounding. What if he doesn't? Michael stood in the middle of the warehouse as figures stepped from the shadows, 3 men in suits, their smiles cold. One of them, tall and scarred, spoke slowly. "You wanted the boy? Then you'll have to make a trade, billionaire. We know what your daughter means to you. And we know what you'd pay for her smile." Michael clenched his fists. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to take him." The man laughed. "Then I hope you know how to fight." The lights flickered and Jamal's voice cried out from somewhere in the darkness. "Mr. Carter! Don't, it's a trap." The warehouse smelled of rust and old oil. Rain dripped through broken skylights, making cold puddles on the floor. Michael Carter stood tall, his expensive coat damp, his sharp eyes locked on the men closing in. 3 of them, suits dark and smiles thin as blades. Somewhere in the shadows, Jamal was bound to a chair, his voice echoing. "Mr. Carter! Don't trust them." Michael didn't flinch. "Let him go." The scarred man, their leader, tilted his head. "You think you can walk in here and make demands? This isn't your skyscraper boardroom. This is our ground." Michael's voice dropped, calm but cold. "I didn't come to beg. I came to fix my mistake." The rain hammered against the metal roof, a steady rhythm like a heartbeat gone wrong. Outside, the docks were empty, only the distant foghorns of ships cutting through the night. Jamal struggled against his ropes, his wrists raw. His eyes met Michael's across the dark room. There was fear there, but also something else, hope. "Let's talk numbers," the scarred man said, lighting a cigarette. "You want the boy? He's rare now, he's touched your world, your daughter's world. That makes him valuable. You pay, we let him go. Or," he exhaled smoke. "You walk away, and he disappears. Forever." Michael's jaw tightened. "How much?" The man grinned. "Not money. Favor. We want a piece of your empire. Your construction project on 5th Avenue, you pull out, sign over the contracts, and we'll consider it." Michael stepped closer, rain dripping from his hair. "You think I'll trade millions for a boy?" "You already are," the man sneered. "Because it's not about the boy. It's about your daughter." Back at the mansion, Emily Carter sat in her wheelchair, watching the rain trace lines on her window. Her nurse tried to distract her with music, but Emily's hands gripped the blanket tight. "Do you believe in signs?" she whispered. The nurse smiled gently. "What kind of signs?" "Like, when you feel something bad is happening far away," Emily said. "Like your heart knows." The nurse hesitated. "Are you worried about your father?" Emily nodded slowly. "He left for Jamal. He never leaves like this. I'm scared." Inside the warehouse, the men circled Michael. One moved behind him, cracking his knuckles. "Time's ticking, Carter. Make the call. Your girl's waiting. One phone call from you, and this kid goes free. Or you keep playing the hero, and we make sure neither of them smiles again." Michael's mind raced. He had fought deals that risked billions, but this was different. If he gave them what they wanted, they would grow stronger, spread like a disease. But if he refused, Jamal would vanish. And Emily, her fragile hope would shatter again. He looked at Jamal. The boy shook his head slightly, his voice hoarse. "Don't do it for me, sir. They'll bleed you dry. Just go." Michael stepped closer to the scarred man. "Untie him. Now." The man smirked. "Brave. Stupid. I like that." A sudden crash of thunder shook the walls. In that split second of distraction, Michael moved. He wasn't a fighter, but desperation made men dangerous. He slammed his shoulder into the nearest thug, sending him sprawling. The others reacted fast. A fist caught his ribs, a boot swept his leg. Pain exploded in his side as he hit the ground. But he didn't stop. He reached for Jamal's chair, trying to drag him free. The scarred man pulled a pistol. "Enough," he roared. "One more move and the boy doesn't dance again." The room froze. Rain pattered. Michael, breathing hard, slowly raised his hands. "You want war?" the scarred man growled. "Fine. But war has rules. We keep him. You bring us the papers by tomorrow night or we send you pieces." Michael stumbled back to his car, blood on his lip, coat torn. The city lights blurred through the rain as he drove, hands gripping the wheel like a vice. His phone buzzed Emily's number. "Daddy? Are you okay?" Her voice was small, trembling. Michael swallowed. He wanted to lie, but he couldn't. "I found him, sweetheart. But they won't let him go." "Not yet." Emily's breath hitched. "Daddy, promise me you'll bring him back. Please. Don't give up this time." Michael closed his eyes. "I promise." The next day, Michael met Rachel in his office. She gasped when she saw his bruised face. "Sir, what happened?" "They want my project," Michael said flatly. "The Fifth Avenue Towers. Years of work, gone overnight. If I give it to them, Jamal walks free. If I don't, he didn't finish." Rachel bit her lip. "Sir, you've always said no deal is worth your soul. But this is your daughter's smile." Michael stared out at the skyline. What's a tower worth, compared to a child's heart? But another thought gnawed at him. If he gave them this, what would they take next? That evening, Emily surprised everyone. She rolled her wheelchair into the dining hall, a place she hadn't entered in months. Her hair was braided, her eyes determined. "Daddy," she said firmly, "tell me the truth. Did they hurt him?" Michael hesitated. "Not yet." "Then don't let them," Emily whispered. "Do whatever it takes. I don't care about buildings or money. I want to see him dance again." Night fell again. Michael sat in his study, staring at the unsigned contracts. One signature would end this. One signature would feed the wolves. The rain tapped the windows like impatient fingers. His phone lit up an anonymous message. "Time's up tomorrow. Midnight. Bring the papers or forget the boy." Michael exhaled slowly. "Sometimes," he murmured, "to save something pure, you have to dirty your own hands." Far away, in the cold warehouse, Jamal whispered to himself, trying to stay awake. "Emily. Mr. Carter, please don't do anything stupid." The scarred man entered, tossing him a half-empty water bottle. "Tomorrow's your lucky day, boy. If your rich friend loves his daughter enough, you'll be free. If not, well, we'll find another use for you." Jamal clenched his fists. "You don't know him. He's not like you." The man laughed. "They all become like me, when they want something bad enough." The clock ticked closer to midnight. Michael signed the papers, his pen heavy like lead. His empire would shrink, his rivals would laugh, but Emily might smile again. But as he sealed the envelope, his phone rang, Rachel's voice trembling on the other end. "Sir, I think we've been played. Coleman isn't just after your building. They've been moving kids for months. This isn't ransom. It's a network. Michael froze. Meaning what? Meaning, even if you give them what they want, they may not let him go. The rain stopped. The city held its breath. Michael stood in his study, torn between a deal that might save Jamal or a fight that might destroy them all. His phone buzzed again, a photo of Jamal, blindfolded, a knife held near his throat. A caption. 1 hour. Michael whispered to the empty room. God help me, what do I do? The city felt like it had stopped breathing. Michael Carter stood in his study with the envelope in his hand, his reflection a fractured ghost in the rain-streaked window. On his phone screen, Jamal's terrified face glowed beneath the cold light, blindfolded, a knife glinting near his throat. The message was clear: 1 hour. Midnight. Bring the papers or lose him forever. Michael's empire was built on decisions, swift and merciless. But this was no boardroom. This was a street war he didn't start, yet now it had his name written across its dark walls. His daughter's fragile hope depended on a boy who should have been just another stranger in the city. He whispered to himself, how did it come to this? A dancer. A child. And my whole world tilts. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining under the pale streetlights. The city's towers glimmered in the distance, but here, near the docks, shadows ruled. Michael's mind was made up: if Coleman's men thought they owned the night, they were wrong. He pressed a button on his phone. Rachel. Tell my driver to prepare the car. And bring the small case from the vault. Rachel's voice trembled. Sir, are you going alone again? No, Michael said quietly. This time. I'm not walking in empty-handed. Meanwhile, in the cold warehouse, Jamal sat bound to the chair, his head throbbing. The scarred man walked circles around him. You really think that rich man cares about you? You're a tool, boy. A key to open a door in his heart. Nothing more. Jamal spat on the floor. If I was nothing, he wouldn't have come back. He wouldn't have fought. The scarred man chuckled. He fought because of his girl, not you. Don't mistake pity for love. Jamal's jaw tightened. You don't know him. I know men like him, the scarred man said coldly. They'll pay. Then they'll forget. And boys like you vanish. Back at the Carter estate, Emily sat in her room, her hands clenched tight on the armrests of her wheelchair. Her nurse tried to soothe her with warm tea. Sweetheart, you need rest. Emily's eyes flashed. No. Daddy's in danger. Jamal's in danger. I can feel it. And if I just sit here, then I'm no better than the people who watch and do nothing. She rolled to her desk, pulling out a tablet. Her fingers typed fast. Who are you messaging? The nurse asked. Someone who owes Daddy a favor, Emily whispered. He's not the only one who can make calls. Midnight approached. Michael arrived at the docks, the black car stopping in a silent stretch of asphalt. In his hand, the envelope, inside it, the contracts they demanded. In the other hand, a small case, inside, not cash, but something older, a signal jammer, a tracking device, and a hidden recording pen. He stepped out, his breath fogging in the cold. Let's end this. Inside, the scarred man waited with 2 guards. Jamal sat in the corner, his face pale but his spirit unbroken. You came, the scarred man said, smirking. Good dog. Michael tossed the envelope on the table. There. Signed. Now release him. The man picked it up, flipped through the papers, nodded slowly. You must really love that girl of yours. Michael's eyes hardened. She smiled because of him. That's worth more than your blood money. The man snapped his fingers. One guard untied Jamal's hands, but not his feet. You can have him, the man said, but there's a fee for making us wait. Pain always charges interest. Suddenly, the door burst open. A blinding light flooded the warehouse, a van screeched in, headlights cutting the dark. Michael shielded his eyes. What the? Voices shouted, NYPD. Down on the ground. Chaos exploded. The guards drew weapons, shouts turned to gunfire. Michael grabbed Jamal, dragging him behind a stack of crates. Through the noise, a familiar voice yelled, "Daddy! Get out of there!" Michael's heart stopped. Emily was in the van, clutching a phone, tears streaming down her cheeks. "What are you doing here?" he roared, firing back with a pistol he hadn't used in years. "I called them," she cried. "I couldn't just wait." The warehouse became a storm: bullets, sirens, shouts. Michael pushed Jamal toward the van. "Go! Now!" Jamal stumbled, his legs stiff from hours of ropes, but he ran. The scarred man grabbed Michael by the collar, snarling, "You think this ends here? You think you can steal from me?" Michael slammed his fist into the man's jaw, years of suppressed rage exploding in one strike. "That's for touching my family." They burst into the cold night air. The van doors slammed. Tires screeched as it sped away, rain-slick roads reflecting the chaos behind them. Inside, Emily clutched Jamal's hand. "You're safe now. You're safe." Jamal looked at her, breathless. Why would you risk that? You don't even know me." Emily smiled weakly. "Because you made me feel alive again." Back at the mansion, doctors checked Jamal's bruises. Michael stood by the window, his coat soaked, his knuckles raw. Rachel entered quietly. "You did it, sir." Michael shook his head. "No. We just started a war." Because on his phone, another message waited. "You took him. We'll come for more." Emily slept that night with a faint smile on her lips for the first time in years. Jamal lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, wondering what storm he had walked into. Michael poured himself a drink, the city lights burning cold in the distance. "They won't stop now," he whispered. "And if they want war, they'll get it." The dawn was gray over Manhattan, the city looking calm but carrying the echo of the chaos that had erupted hours before. Michael Carter stood by the window of his penthouse office, a glass of untouched water in his hand. His bruised knuckles throbbed with every heartbeat, but it wasn't the pain that kept him awake, it was the message still burning in his phone. "You took him. We'll come for more." He had brought Jamal back. He had saved his daughter's fragile hope. But in doing so, he had declared war on men who thrived in the dark. And wars, he knew, never stayed in the dark for long. The sunlight streamed through the Carter estate's east wing, soft and warm on the marble floors. Emily was awake early, her hair tied back, her wheelchair parked near the garden window. Jamal sat across from her, a bandage on his cheek, his old sneakers still wet from the night before. "You really called the police?" Jamal asked, his voice low but filled with awe. Emily smiled faintly. "You think you're the only one who can be brave?" He shook his head. "Brave? You almost got hurt." "They could have." "I didn't care," Emily interrupted, her eyes steady. "For 2 years, I didn't care about anything. And then you danced." Jamal looked away, unsure how to hold the weight of those words. Michael entered, his expression unreadable. "Both of you, no more risks. Not a step outside without my say." Emily frowned. "Daddy, you can't lock us up. We're not your prisoners." Michael's tone sharpened. "You think this is a game? Those men don't forget. They don't forgive. They'll come for you, for him, for anyone I care about." Jamal raised a hand. "Sir, maybe I should leave. I don't belong in this world." Michael turned to him, his voice softer now. "You belong here because my daughter needs you. And because they want to take you. That means we don't run, we prepare." Later that day, Michael held a meeting with his private security team. Maps were spread across the table, photos of Coleman's men pinned with red marks. "They'll try one of two things," he said coldly. "Either hit us in public to make a message, or slip inside quietly and take what matters." Rachel added, "The media's already circling. They heard about the warehouse raid. They're asking why a billionaire was fighting street thugs over a boy with no last name in the system.
Michael rubbed his temples. Let them ask.
I'm done hiding behind glass walls.
By evening, the Carter estate seemed calm. Too calm.
Guards patrolled the gates, cameras scanned every inch, and yet, there was a heaviness in the air, as if the storm hadn't left, only crouched low. Jamal practiced quietly in the grand hall, his sneakers brushing the marble. Emily watched from her chair, a rare smile tugging her lips. "You know," she said, "for someone who's been through all that, you still dance like the world's not broken."
Jamal chuckled.
"That's the trick.
Dance like it doesn't hurt because maybe it'll stop hurting one day."
Then, as the clock struck 9, the lights went out.
A second of silence.
Then the backup generators hummed weakly, but only dim lamps flickered alive. Michael's voice echoed down the hall, "Everyone, stay together." From the security feed, Rachel's voice cracked, "Sir, the east gate."
"It's down. Motion sensors offline. They're inside."
The mansion erupted into a tense scramble. Guards rushed to the east wing. Michael ran toward Emily's room, empty. His heart slammed against his chest.
"Emily!" A soft cry echoed from the garden. Jamal's voice. Michael burst through the glass doors into the rain-damp lawn and saw them. Two masked men, one gripping Jamal, the other wheeling Emily toward a waiting van. "Let them go!" Michael roared, charging forward.
A flash of steel, a knife at Jamal's side. "Step back, Carter, or the boy bleeds."
The night twisted into a nightmare.
Rain began to fall again, thin and cold. Emily's eyes were wide, but she didn't scream.
"Daddy, don't. Please. They'll hurt him."
Michael's fists clenched. He had no weapon this time, no plan.
Only rage. The van door slammed. Tires spun on wet grass. In seconds, they were gone, Emily and Jamal both. Michael fell to his knees in the mud, the echoes of the engine fading into the night.
For a man who had controlled empires, who could bend markets with a signature, that moment was worse than any loss he had ever faced.
He whispered to the rain. "They took my heart. Twice." Rachel found him minutes later.
"Sir, the cameras caught part of their plate. They're using an old shipping route.
We can track them."
Michael stood slowly, his face pale but his eyes burning.
"Then we track them. And this time, I don't want negotiations. I want them broken."
In the van, Emily's hands were tied, Jamal sitting beside her, both silent.
The masked man in the front laughed. "You two are worth more than gold now. The boss says the billionaire will give everything this time. He already signed once.
Now he'll sign with blood."
Emily whispered to Jamal, "I'm sorry. This is my fault." Jamal shook his head. "No. You saved me.
Now we save each other."
Far away, under the dripping eaves of the docks, Coleman himself read a message on his phone.
"Carter will come," he murmured to his man. "And when he does, we finish what we started." The city lights flickered as the storm grew heavier.
Michael Carter, once a man who measured life in profit and loss, now measured it in heartbeats and promises.
He looked at the map on his dashboard, the red dot blinking where the van last appeared. His voice was a whisper, but it carried the weight of a vow.
"This time, I'm not bringing papers. I'm bringing war." The storm battered the city as Michael Carter's black SUV cut through the empty industrial district.
Rain streaked down the windshield, lightning cracked in the sky, and his fingers gripped the wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. For years he had been a man of negotiations and contracts, of strategies and leverage, but tonight, all that meant nothing. Tonight he was just a father, and a man who had promised a boy he would never be abandoned again.
Beside him, Rachel reloaded the tranquilizer gun she'd insisted on bringing.
"Sir, we have one chance."
Dock 17.
That's where they stopped.
Michael nodded.
"We go in quiet first. If that fails, we go in loud."
The warehouse loomed in the storm, rusted metal walls and broken floodlights flickering against the dark water.
Inside, the smell of oil and salt hung heavy in the air. A few guards paced lazily, confident that the rain and night were their shield. Tied to a chair, Emily's lips trembled, but her eyes stayed locked on Jamal, who sat beside her, ropes cutting his wrists. "They'll come for us, right?" she whispered.
Jamal smiled faintly despite the bruise on his jaw. "Your dad? He's already here. I can feel it."
And somewhere in the shadows above, Michael was indeed there, climbing the old catwalk, his coat soaked, his heart a drumbeat in the rain. Coleman stepped from the shadows, his gold chain glinting even in the dim light. "You know, Carter always thinks he's the smartest in the room," he said, crouching in front of Emily. "But men like him always forget some of us grew up in rooms like this. Some of us never forgot how to survive." He grabbed Jamal's chin roughly.
"This one? He's not worth your empire."
"But your girl? Oh, she's worth every penny you've got."
Emily didn't flinch. "You'll never get it. He's not doing this for money anymore." Suddenly, a flashbang rolled across the floor. Bang! Light and sound tore through the warehouse. Guards stumbled, shouting. Coleman cursed, pulling Emily's chair back. Michael dropped from the catwalk, tackling the nearest thug.
"Get them out," he shouted to Rachel, who darted forward, cutting Jamal free.
Jamal sprang up despite his numb hands. "Emily, hold on."
The fight was chaos, metal pipes clashing, shouts echoing, the storm howling through the broken doors.
Michael fought like a man possessed.
Every punch was not for pride but for every night Emily had spent in pain, for every alley Jamal had danced in alone.
But Coleman was faster than expected.
He grabbed a crowbar, swung, and sent Michael sprawling across the wet concrete.
"You think you can buy everything, Carter?
Tonight, you pay in blood." Jamal saw it happen in slow motion, the crowbar raised, Michael 2 days to move. And something in the boy snapped. He lunged forward, grabbing the loose rope from his wrists, and swung it across Coleman's arm, yanking it back with all his strength.
"Run, Emily," he shouted.
Emily's hands clenched the wheels of her chair, her voice trembling. "I'm not leaving without you." In that moment of chaos, the unexpected happened. Emily's leg twitched.
A surge of fear, adrenaline, and desperate will coursed through her.
She pushed again, harder.
One foot pressed the ground.
Jamal's eyes widened.
"Emily! Your leg moved." She didn't even realize it until then.
Tears blurred her sight as she pushed again, the chair rolling forward under her own strength. Michael, seeing the chance, grabbed Coleman and shoved him back into a pile of crates.
The sirens wailed outside, police backup, finally arriving.
Coleman's men scattered into the rain, but he himself was dragged down by the arriving officers, cursing Michael's name. Inside the warehouse, it was over. Emily clutched Jamal's hand. Michael knelt before them both, his suit torn, his face streaked with blood and rain. "You saved her," he whispered to Jamal. "No," Jamal shook his head, still panting. "She saved me." Weeks later, the Carter estate looked different, not because of wealth, but because of warmth. Emily's physiotherapy was now every morning, and Jamal was there for each session, sometimes dancing beside her, sometimes just making her laugh. Michael signed a different kind of contract now, not for profit, but for the youth centers he started across the city, places where boys like Jamal would never have to choose between hunger and hope again. One evening, as the sunset painted the city gold, Emily truly stood, without the wheelchair for the first time in 2 years.
Jamal clapped, laughing. "Told you you'd dance again before me," he said. Michael's eyes misted. "No empire, no deal, could give me this moment."
As reporters later asked what drove the change, Michael said only, "Sometimes the richest thing a man can own is a second chance, for himself, and for someone who never had one. Wealth can build walls or bridges, it's the heart behind it that decides. True courage is not in money or power, but in the willingness to fight for others, even when it costs you everything."